The Quarn, emissaries from a distant star system, had arrived on Earth with an air of haughty curiosity. Towering, gaunt creatures with iridescent exoskeletons, they communicated in a sequence of clicks and low vibrations that translators struggled to keep up with. They had traveled light years to initiate cultural exchange, and their peculiar focus was food. "We consume flesh in its purest state," Ambassador Ilrax declared during their first summit. His voice, filtered through an alien translator device, carried the pride of a species that considered itself far above the primitive habits of cooking. Unaltered, unmarred by flame. Alex Hayes, a chef-turned-diplomatic liaison, suppressed a sigh as he sat at the circular negotiation table in the sprawling Geneva Accord Dome. The man had always been passionate about food, but this was shaping up to be his greatest challenge yet. He was tasked with showcasing Earth's culinary heritage, specifically meat. The Quarn, however, were adamant about consuming it raw and found the human obsession with fire baffling. Ambassador Alex said with a polite nod, "We respect your traditions. But humans have developed methods to transform the natural flavors of meat into something extraordinary. Cooking is an art and a science, a cornerstone of our culture." Ilrax clicked in disapproval. His mandibles twitched, a gesture the translators informed Alex was mild revulsion. Flesh is perfect as it is. To subject it to fire is to desecrate its essence. Undeterred, Alex leaned forward. "Would you allow us to show you? A demonstration, perhaps?" The Quarn delegation conferred among themselves in a chorus of rhythmic clicks and soft chittering. Finally, Ilrax responded, "We will observe, though we anticipate little of value in this ritual." Alex smiled. He'd converted skeptical food critics before. Alien dignitaries couldn't be much harder. The following day, a makeshift kitchen was assembled in the Geneva Accord Dome's central plaza. Underneath the dome's translucent roof, sunlight filtered in, casting soft shadows over the equipment. A modest crowd had gathered, human onlookers eager to witness the exchange, and Quarn delegates looming like statues in the background. Alex stood at the center of the scene, his chef's jacket crisp and white. On a gleaming steel counter lay a slab of Wagyu beef, a marvel of marbling and richness that had been flown in from Japan that morning. Next to it, a portable grill waited, its surface already heating. "This," Alex began, addressing the Quarn as he held up the beef, "is one of Earth's finest cuts of meat. The intramuscular fat, or marbling, creates a tender, flavorful experience." Ambassador Ilrax regarded the meat with skeptical eyes. "Its texture is appealing, but what follows?" Alex placed the steak on the preheated grill. The sizzle was immediate and dramatic, a symphony of sound that drew murmurs from the human crowd. The Quarn flinched collectively at the sound, their tall forms bending slightly backward, as if recoiling from the violence of the act. "You are destroying it," Ilrax protested, his translator delivering the words in a sharp tone. "Not destroying," Alex said as he expertly flipped the steak with a pair of tongs, revealing a golden brown crust. "We call this searing. It creates a Maillard reaction, enhancing flavor and texture." He worked quickly, letting the steak cook just long enough to form a crisp exterior while leaving the interior pink and tender. When he sliced into it, the knife revealed a perfect gradient in outer crust, giving way to the succulent medium rare center. The aroma filled the plaza, drawing audible gasps from the human spectators. Even the Quarn seemed momentarily distracted, their clicking voices lowering to a curious hum. "This is a medium rare steak," Alex announced, placing the sliced pieces onto a clean platter. "It's cooked to perfection, not too raw, not overdone. The heat unlocks flavors that would otherwise remain hidden." The platter was carried over to the Quarn delegation. For a moment there was only silence as the aliens regarded the burnt flesh with what Alex could only describe as morbid fascination. "Try it," Alex encouraged. Ilrax hesitated before selecting a slice. He lifted it delicately with one of his clawed appendages and brought it to his mouth. The first bite was tentative, his mandibles working slowly. The reaction was immediate. Ilrax's exoskeleton shimmered with ripples of iridescent color, a Quarnian reflex signaling shock. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the flavor. "This is unlike anything we have known," Ilrax said, his tone unreadable. "Good or bad?" Alex asked, suppressing a nervous laugh. Ilrax's shimmering exoskeleton steadied as he composed himself. It is an assault on the senses, but not unpleasant. The flavors are layered. Encouraged by their leader's reaction, the other Quarn delegates began sampling the steak. Each displayed similar ripples of color, and their clicks grew increasingly rapid, a sign, the translators suggested, of heightened interest. It is a violation, one of the Quarn murmured, yet it is compelling. Alex smiled. Cooking is about more than nourishment. It's about creating an experience. A perfectly seared steak is a balance between fire and flesh, science and art. Ilrax's mandibles twitched as he set down his empty plate. Humans are reckless, yet there is brilliance in your recklessness. We will continue to observe this art of cooking. As the Quarn delegation retreated, still murmuring among themselves, Alex exhaled deeply. He had made a crack in their skepticism. The sizzling steak might just become the bridge between two worlds. The Quarn delegation returned the next day, their luminous exoskeletons shimmering in subdued hues that Alex was beginning to recognize as curiosity. They arrived at the temporary kitchen setup with a new intensity, their towering forms crowding the area as they clicked and conferred in their melodic language. "This searing you demonstrated has sparked considerable debate among us," Ambassador Ilrax announced. "Some among our delegation are intrigued by its complexity. Others regard it as a grotesque aberration. However, consensus demands further investigation." Alex suppressed a grin as he prepared the station for another demonstration. "I'm glad to hear that you're keeping an open mind. Today I'd like to show you a variety of ways humans prepare meat, each with its own unique results." Ilrax's mandibles twitched, a gesture the translator helpfully identified as skeptical impatience. "Proceed." The Quarn stood in a semicircle as Alex brought out a selection of meats: chicken thighs, pork ribs, and lamb chops. Each was meticulously marinated, seasoned, and ready for its moment on the grill or in the oven. While the steak I prepared yesterday focused on simplicity and balance, these dishes will showcase how humans use flavor to enhance the natural essence of the meat, Alex explained. He began with the chicken thighs, grilling them until the skin crisped to a golden brown. The air filled with a heady aroma of garlic, rosemary, and charred fat. The Quarn shifted uneasily, their fractal eyes tracking every movement. "This is an example of how seasoning and controlled heat can transform meat into something more complex," Alex said as he plated the chicken. "The seasoning isn't just for taste, it interacts with the meat during cooking to create layers of flavor." Olban, one of the younger Quarn delegates, stepped forward hesitantly. He picked up a piece of chicken with his clawed appendages, sniffed it, then took a cautious bite. His exoskeleton erupted in a swirl of glowing green and orange patterns as his clicks rose in frequency. "It is soft yet crisp," Olban said, his voice tinged with awe. "The outer layer provides resistance, but the interior melts." "Exactly," Alex said, slicing into the next dish. "Humans value textures as much as flavors. The contrast between the crisp skin and tender meat is what makes it special." The Quarn passed the chicken pieces among themselves, their reactions ranging from quiet fascination to outright dismay. Ilrax himself partook, though his shimmering body betrayed nothing more than guarded curiosity. Next came the pork ribs, slow cooked to the point where the meat practically fell off the bone. Alex coated them with a smoky barbecue sauce, the deep red glaze gleaming under the lights. "Pork ribs are a prime example of how humans use time as an ingredient," Alex said. "This meat was cooked slowly over hours to break down its fibers, making it tender and flavorful. The sauce is a blend of spices, vinegar, and sugar, designed to complement the meat's natural taste." The Quarn appeared unsettled by the sticky sauce but gamely tried the ribs. Ilrax's mandibles clicked furiously as he chewed, and his exoskeleton flickered with faint blue and gold hues. "This barbecue, as you call it, is bold and aggressive," Ilrax said after swallowing. "The flavors are overwhelming, yet harmonious. It is a paradox." "That's the beauty of it," Alex replied, feeling a swell of pride. Finally, he presented the lamb chops, cooked to a delicate medium and seasoned with a mixture of mint and cumin. The aroma was intoxicating, even to the alien delegation. "Lamb has a naturally rich flavor," Alex explained. "The seasoning here isn't meant to overpower it, but to highlight its depth. It's about balance. The Quarn delegates tasted the lamb with an air of reverence, their responses more subdued this time. Olban hummed appreciatively. It is. Dignified. The flavor is deep, yet it does not assault the senses as the ribs did. Ilrax nodded, his fractal eyes narrowing in contemplation. Your species seems to revel in contradictions. You claim to respect the purity of flesh, yet you alter it so drastically. Alex smiled. It's not about disrespect. It's about celebrating what the meat can become. Cooking allows us to explore possibilities, to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The Quarn delegation conferred in a flurry of clicks and hums before Ilrax spoke again. We have learned much from these experiments. However, we must understand whether your methods are born of necessity or choice. Would your species consume this food raw if given no alternative? Alex hesitated. Well, historically, yes, early humans ate raw meat. But cooking wasn't just about survival, it was about evolving. It helped us unlock more nutrients, brought communities together, and laid the foundation for our culture. Now, we choose to cook because it's an expression of who we are. Ilrax regarded him silently for a long moment. Then he clicked his mandibles decisively. There is much to consider. Your species may be reckless and strange, but your ingenuity cannot be denied. We will observe further. As the delegation departed, Alex began cleaning up the station, his mind buzzing with ideas for the next demonstration. He had a feeling that this journey was far from over, and that the Quarn's understanding of food, and perhaps humanity itself, was beginning to shift. The Quarn returned with an unusual request. Instead of observing another demonstration, they wanted to be involved in the cooking process. Ilrax declared this necessary to fully grasp what he referred to as the unsettling human ritual of altering flesh. Alex had anticipated this evolution of their curiosity and prepared accordingly. He had arranged for a station in the Geneva Accord dome to accommodate the Quarn's elongated forms and delicate exoskeletons. The new setup featured simplified equipment and tools adapted for their clawed appendages. You wish to try cooking for yourselves? Alex asked as Ilrax loomed over the workstation. To understand, we must participate, Ilrax replied, his mandibles clicking with what the translator labeled as determination. Fair enough, Alex said, handing a set of tongs to Olban, who looked at the implement with the suspicion one might reserve for a venomous creature. We'll start with something straightforward: burgers. Simple, versatile, and universally loved by humans. Burgers, Ilrax repeated, testing the word as though it might dissolve in his mouth. Alex placed several freshly formed beef patties on a clean platter. This is ground beef. It's not one solid cut but a mixture, which makes it easier to work with. The goal is to sear the outside while keeping the inside juicy. He demonstrated by placing a patty on the grill, the sizzle drawing another wave of unease from the Quarn delegation. As the aroma of the browning meat filled the air, Alex added, we'll also use buns, baked bread, and toppings like cheese, lettuce, and tomatoes to complete the dish. It's about creating balance and contrast. You continuously speak of balance, Ilrax said, as he gingerly attempted to mimic Alex's actions with another patty. His claws trembled slightly as he dropped the meat onto the grill with an awkward plop. Yet every step you take seems chaotic. It's controlled chaos, Alex said with a grin, flipping his patty. Olban, emboldened by Ilrax's effort, added his own patty to the grill. His exoskeleton shimmered faintly, signaling a mix of nerves and excitement. The younger Quarn glanced at Alex for reassurance, and the chef gave an encouraging nod. As the Quarn delegates worked under Alex's guidance, the scene quickly became an amusing spectacle. Ilrax accidentally squeezed too hard with the tongs, sending his patty skidding off the grill. Another delegate misjudged the heat and singed the edge of their claw, producing a rapid series of distress clicks. Olban fared slightly better, managing to flip his patty without incident, though his exoskeleton shimmered erratically as the grease hissed and popped. Why does it? Spit, Olban asked, gesturing at the sizzling fat. That's the natural juices reacting to the heat, Alex explained. It's a sign the meat is cooking properly. It seems hostile, Ilrax muttered, but he continued his attempt. Once the patties were cooked, Alex showed the Quarn how to assemble their burgers. The aliens watched intently as he layered lettuce, tomato, and cheese between the bun halves before topping it with the patty. He handed the first completed burger to Ilrax, who regarded it with the reverence of a ceremonial artifact. "This is," perplexing Ilrax said, holding the burger aloft. "It's a classic human creation," Alex said. "Go ahead, try it." Ilrax took a tentative bite. His mandibles worked slowly as he processed the layers of flavor and texture. The colors rippling across his exoskeleton were almost hypnotic, a shifting blend of purples and greens that Alex had come to recognize as fascination. "It is," multifaceted Ilrax said after swallowing. "Each component contributes to the whole, yet remains distinct." "That's the idea," Alex said, watching as Olban and the others began sampling their creations. "The bread provides structure, the vegetables add freshness, and the cheese and meat bring richness. It's about harmony." Olban let out a series of rapid clicks. "This is astonishing. The simplicity of the components belies the complexity of the result." "It's a lesson in contrast," Alex said. "Sometimes simplicity is the key to achieving balance." The Quarn continued experimenting, growing more confident with each attempt. By the end of the session, the delegation had produced a variety of imperfect but earnest burgers, each accompanied by a kaleidoscope of shimmering exoskeletons. As the day wound down, Alex found himself sitting with Ilrax and Olban at a small table near the edge of the dome. The Quarn leader seemed unusually contemplative, his fractal eyes focused on the distant horizon. "You have changed our perception of flesh," Ilrax admitted. "What we once saw as immutable has been revealed as something malleable. It is a humbling realization." Alex took a sip of water and set the glass down. "Cooking teaches us that change isn't always a bad thing. It's how we grow, how we adapt." Olban clicked softly, a sound the translator identified as agreement. "Your species thrives on transformation. Perhaps we have been too rigid in our ways." Alex smiled. "Well, you're off to a good start. Who knows? Maybe someday the Quarn will have their own version of a burger joint." Ilrax's mandibles twitched, a gesture that Alex now recognized as the closest thing to a smile. "Do not be so certain. But we will continue to explore this strange and chaotic art of yours. There is more to learn and more to taste." As the Quarn departed for the evening, Alex felt a sense of accomplishment mingled with anticipation. The culinary bridge he was building wasn't just about food, it was about understanding, curiosity, and the possibility of finding common ground in the unlikeliest of places. The Quarn's growing fascination with Earth's cooking methods culminated in a bold proposition from Ilrax. The delegation requested an official Feast of Understanding, a culminating event where the Quarn would not only observe but also share their raw consumption rituals alongside human dishes. It would be a cultural exchange of unprecedented scope. Alex welcomed the idea, though he couldn't help but wonder how the audience, human and alien alike, would respond to a buffet featuring both perfectly seared steak and uncooked slabs of alien meat. Nevertheless, he saw the event as an opportunity to showcase the pinnacle of Earth's culinary traditions. The preparations were monumental. The Geneva Accord Dome was transformed into a sprawling banquet hall, with separate stations for human and Quarn dishes. While the Quarn curated a selection of raw meats from their homeworld, Alex coordinated a menu that included everything from slow-roasted brisket to flame-grilled kebabs, with steak as the centerpiece. On the day of the feast, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Human delegates mingled with the towering Quarn, their mutual curiosity overcoming the language barrier. Plates of glistening alien meats were displayed on one side of the room, while sizzling grills filled the other with mouth-watering aromas. Alex stood at the central station, where the steak demonstration was set to begin. The audience hushed as Ilrax approached, his iridescent exoskeleton gleaming under the dome's lights. Chef Alex Hayes, Ilrax intoned, his translator imbuing the words with gravitas. "You have shown us the transformative power of fire. Now let us witness your finest creation." Alex took a deep breath and gestured toward the slab of Wagyu beef waiting on the counter. "Today, I'm preparing a steak that represents the pinnacle of human culinary artistry, a perfectly seared medium rare." The Quarn murmured among themselves, their fractal eyes fixed on the beef. Even the humans seemed captivated, despite their familiarity with the dish. Alex worked with practiced precision. He seasoned the meat with salt and freshly cracked pepper, then laid it on the grill. The sizzle was immediate, drawing murmurs of awe from the Quarn. This, Alex began, flipping the steak with a flourish, is not just about cooking. It's about respect for the meat, for the ingredients, and for the process itself. Fire is a tool, not an enemy. It brings out the best in what we consume. As the steak cooked, Alex explained the importance of timing, temperature, and rest. He removed the meat from the grill, letting it sit to allow the juices to redistribute. When he sliced into it, the audience gasped, Quarn and human alike. The steak was a masterpiece, a caramelized crust giving way to a tender, pink interior. Alex plated the slices with a drizzle of pan sauce and a side of roasted vegetables. Ilrak stepped forward to taste the first piece. The room fell silent as the Quarn leader lifted the fork to his mouth. His mandibles worked slowly, and his exoskeleton rippled with a dazzling array of colors. This, Ilrak said after a long pause, is transcendent. The Quarn delegates clicked in astonishment, their colors shimmering in harmony. Human applause erupted, mingling with the melodic hums of the Quarn. The second half of the feast was no less extraordinary. The Quarn presented their raw delicacies, which ranged from translucent slabs of shimmering meat to what looked like gelatinous tendrils. Ilrak explained the significance of each dish, their cultural and spiritual value woven into the act of consumption. Though skeptical, Alex tried a piece of what Ilrak called levish in spine, a raw, sinewy cut from a Quarnian creature. To his surprise, it was subtly sweet, with a texture that melted on his tongue. Not everything raw is bad, Alex admitted, nodding appreciatively. It's delicate, different. You see now why we value purity, Ilrak said, his tone carrying a hint of triumph. The humans and Quarn continued to sample each other's offerings, the room filled with lively conversation and mutual admiration. By the end of the evening, the air was electric with newfound understanding. As the feast wound down, Alex found himself standing beside Ilrak near the edge of the banquet hall. The Quarn leader was quiet, his fractal eyes scanning the crowd of mingling humans and aliens. You have changed us, Alex Hayes Ilrak said at last. Your fire has revealed truths we had long dismissed. Flesh, like life, is not diminished by change, it is enriched. And you've taught me that sometimes simplicity is just as powerful as transformation, Alex replied. There's value in both perspectives. Ilrak's mandibles twitched in what Alex now recognized as a smile. Perhaps our species are not so different after all. We both seek meaning in what we consume, whether through fire or raw essence. The two stood in companionable silence, watching as the first tentative bonds of friendship formed between their peoples. For Alex, the journey had been as much about discovery as diplomacy, a reminder that even the smallest acts like cooking a steak could bridge galaxies. As the lights of the dome dimmed, signaling the end of the feast, Alex allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The Quarn had called it burnt flesh, humans called it a perfectly seared steak. Tonight it was something far greater, a shared triumph of understanding.